The night belongs to us. We will bathe in their blood and relish their screams.
Hi everybody, I'm Mark White. I'm the former project lead and managing director for Southampton Vampire by Night. In this video, I'm going to talk about hats. Yeah, hats. So I'm not talking about hats that you put on your head. It's just a reference that I came across that was really, really useful. Now, when your project's finished and you're running your games, it can become quickly apparent when you're play testing, or if you've been involved in running games in the past. That's where I'm getting this information from. I know mine never launched, but I was involved in running other LARPs, and one of the things that can will quickly come apparent is the workload and how that workload is distributed, and individuals that are overworked and others that are underworked, and time constraints and all of that. So one of the things that we were keen to do throughout the project was, when it came to the actual game itself, the launch of the game, we were referring to roles and responsibilities as hats. And we were also allocating to that role and responsibility the time commitment required. So that would mean, for example, if you had someone that was doing your downtime system, and in our case the international downtime system, we were saying that we expected the amount of engagement and time investment from an individual running that would be, let's say, 5 hours a week. So we would expect that individual to be able to, on a weekly basis, commit 5 hours of their time to helping to run that system. And so let's say then that individual then got involved in writing plots for the game. And we've said, right, well, we would like our plot writers to spend about 2 to 3 hours a week writing plots. And either the world plots or meta plot stuff or whatever it is, just plot writer in general. We want them to spend 3 hours a week. Now let's now say then that this international ref also likes writing plots. So there you go. They've now got 8 hours a week. And then on top of that, let's say the international ref really likes playing an NPC at one of our games, but they do it remotely. So they like to get involved with the international players via those things that we were saying, like where you're able to take control of security or watch the cameras or active on the forums and all of this stuff. So that then is another 4 hours for a month for each of the games. And then let's say outside of the games they're also going to be active on the forums as their NPC, and that would probably take another 4 hours within a month of typing responses and getting involved in stuff. So when you put it all together and break it down, all of a sudden this individual is involved in 16 hours, 15 hours worth of work per week. And if you've got any other commitments, like your job, running your household, seeing your family, seeing your friends, going on holidays, all of these other commitments that can come around, all of a sudden that individual will feel overloaded. And then it comes to the decision of, well, what, I've got to step away from this game. I've got to walk away. So if you didn't have the hat system, and all of a sudden that individual was working out that they had 16 hours worth of commitment, the only option they will think about, or the only option they will find, is to just walk away from the game until their life settles down a bit more, where they can then commit again, or don't commit ever again. And this is the fundamental issues of a lot of LARPs, is that individuals take on way too many commitments and then feel like shackled to those commitments within the game and feel like the only option they have is just to walk away from it, because otherwise, they would, that they feel like there's nobody else that can take what or do what they're doing, etc. And trying to quantify what it is that they're doing as well can become difficult if the LARP itself hasn't created beforehand roles and responsibilities. So if you just turn around to someone and say, hey, welcome to the ref team, you're a ref. What I need you to do is basically turn up to our games and then help run them. And the guy goes, well, the person goes, yeah, okay, that sounds great. I love the idea of that. And then all of a sudden it's turning up to the game early to help do setup and staying late to do takedown, replying to downtime responses during the week, being active on the forum, helping write plots down, going to team meetings to make sure we got everything ready for the next game, creating costumes, creating props, moving stuff from one place to another, storing things, dealing with characters and players that have altercations at the game, learning all of the rules. Just the list goes on. That individual who just thought they were turning up to ref the game, all of a sudden they're a ref. They've got to do everything, and it very quickly becomes overwhelming. And that's when you lose your crew, you lose your team. And when you start to lose your team, all of a sudden the work that individual was doing just gets bundled onto somebody else, and then that person will leave and somebody else. And I've seen this in LARPs. I've definitely seen this happen where core members of the crew have left and because of other commitments that have come up in their life, and then because they've left, other members of the crew get overwhelmed, and then the LARP comes to an end. So right away back at the beginning, I turned around and I said about hats and roles and responsibilities. So what we were doing is we turned around and said, right, when you join, when you become a member of the team, there will be a list of all the hats and all the responsibilities in the game, and then there will be available hats for other people and hats that you can share, etc., etc. And the idea being is that you could look at it and go, right, well, I've got 6 hours a week that I can dedicate. I think I can happily, continuously dedicate 6 hours a week. So what's available to me? What can I get involved in? And you can look down those roles and responsibilities and the time requirement allocated to them. And you can take that responsibility, that hat, and you can put it on. And then if for any reason your commitment started to change and you didn't have 6 hours and you went down to 3 hours, it's not the end of the world. Take the hat off, put it back, pick up another one that's 3 hours and put it on. And vice versa. People have got more time, less time, etc. Now, for you watching this, you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, but if that individual takes their hats off and puts it back on, nobody's doing that thing anymore. So what happens if all your refs take their hats off and put it on the other side? This is where you have some contingencies within your game. Some core hats that are required to be worn to ensure your games can take place. And this is when you will see certain things will stop happening. So for example, there will be aspects of the game or hats that aren't critical, and everybody who's wearing those hats will take them off temporarily and put one of those other ones on, meaning we always needed to have a rules ref at the game. We always need to have somebody at the game that is prepared or available to do medical attention and safety. We need somebody at the game that is there to be a ref that is floating around, that is available to players outside of the game, meaning if the player's character was to die, or if they've had a grievance, or if they were asking, they needed assistance with something personally not related to the game, then there would be a ref available for that to deal with that individual, etc. And then NPCs, etc. So we'd separated it into these hats are necessary. These hats can be temporarily taken off, and then we were looking at how long we could go without those hats being worn before changes needed to be made. And then we just had hats that are just nice to do. And the idea being is that we were hoping that we would have a core team to deal with the game itself, and then we would have other individuals that would come in and out of the team, that would put on these other, non-critical hats, and they would know upfront what was expected of them, what their commitment means, and that they don't have to worry if at any point they have to take the hat off, etc., etc., etc. And yeah, that was so important, because if you've got that level of organisation, if you've got that level of planning, our plan was that we would never be in a situation like I've been in on many times in other LARPs, where all of a sudden you were expecting to have 8 members of the crew turn up to your game, and now you're down to 6, and you've got 3 vacant spots, or I'll do maths here, Mark. 2 vacant spots that need to be filled because they were critical for elements of your game. And we were trying desperately to put things in place to avoid that. So we were having positions in the game that would be filled that actually could be at the last minute kind of pulled back, and that individual put into another position. And that would even go for when we were writing the plots and the NPCs and stuff like that. There would be plot lines and NPCs that could be pulled back to be for those players or crew to be put on the more critical. And that was part of the planning. That's what we were doing when we were writing plots, when we were creating the games itself, the courts, etc. We were thinking about that. What do we definitely need? What hats are critical for the game itself to take place? And then all the things that were nice to do as well. And it sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's not a lot of work. You just have to ensure that that you go through and you look at, okay, so I'm implementing a downtime system. What is required to make that downtime system work? And then you look at that and you come up with a list of everything that needs to be done. And then you go, right, okay, of that list, let's look at it and go, how long will those items take? And always be generous with your times, because people work at different speeds. So err in caution and go more generous. And then go, right, okay, so that's how much time is the commitment required. And then those are the things that need doing, so they become your roles and responsibilities of that. And then you just assign a name and a hat to it. So you've got your time, you've got your roles and responsibility, you've got your hat. And then you know, if you've got that in place, this is all going to work. And if you want to, you can spend some time, and I'd recommend doing this. We did it when we were talking to people like the plot writers and stuff, is ensure that you have clear guidance and instructions for those individuals. Something that they can look at. A video, a document, an example. All of these, the more you've got of those and combine them together, the easier it is, because people learn and understand things in different ways. Some are audible, some are visual, etc., etc. Some are physical, got to touch stuff. So what we were trying to do is, because we knew that there would be positions and hats that would be free-flowing, that would constantly be taken on and off, I didn't want to spend my time, and other members of the core ref team didn't want to spend their time continuously telling new people that were getting involved how to do this thing. Because this was something, if you can remember a video I said a while back when it came to the plots, it was something that killed me, is that I would spend 8 hours talking to an individual about how we required them to write the plots, and then they wouldn't write a plot. And then the next person who came in, another 8 hours worth of conversation to explain it all. And that's eventually where we got to a plot document that would then kind of streamline the process a bit. I still had to talk, but my plan was, if that had continued and we still were going down that avenue, I was going to create a video explaining it all. I was going to have like an actual, the interview process would have actually been us going through that example like as a player would. So they would be the player and I'd be them, the ref. And I showed them how the plot lines kind of work, so they get like a physical, not physical touching, but like a physical understanding of the mechanics of it. And then visually I'd have presented a video to them, which would be the conversation I would have that would answer most of their questions. But that's something extra you can do if you feel like one of your hats is going to be continuously changing. But yeah, definitely think about what I've talked about in this video with your LARPs. I personally feel that this wasn't in any way a negative and didn't lead to any issues. Actually, this was one of the positive things that came from the project, was when it came to project management in other aspects of my life, utilizing these things, this hat system has really helped. I mean, you can utilize it around the house. So for example, we recently had a kid, and there's new responsibilities that come into that, and then you have to allocate the tasks that you used to do, reallocate them around and add in these new ones that you've got because you're looking after a child. And that meant that some of our, let's call it, roles and responsibilities of upkeep in the house swapped around. And because we knew, how long something was going to take and how often it had to happen and all the rest of it, we were able to balance things out. So you can utilize it in your own life. But what I mean is, for your LARPs, it can make a massive difference. And if you are if you are starting a LARP up and you haven't implemented this yet, just keep an eye out for your team. Because like I say, people's life's changed, things happen, and this is one of the quickest ways you will lose crew, is if your crew member is overloaded, and then something in their life changes and their priorities change, and then all of a sudden they feel their only option is just to step away, and that's how you lose friends. That's how you you get some heated conversations, etc. Well, not really heated conversations. Most of the time it will go down, "I'm really sorry to hear you're going through that, and just let us know if there's anything we can do." And then that individual leaves. And then you're like going, "Oh, what am I doing now?" And you've got to quickly Facebook, "Anybody want to be a member of the crew?" Blah 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 blah, and then they say, "Oh, what's involved?" And you're like, "Oh, okay, right." And you big list of stuff, and they're like, "Sounds like a lot." Yeah. So, like I say, I think people should implement this. And I'd like to know if other LARP systems have implemented this. So if you are a LARP organizer and you've been watching these videos, then if you've implemented something like this or some of the stuff I've said in the past, please speak out. And if the community feels like this is a really bad idea, because don't forget, like I've said on other videos, this is coming from someone who failed to create a LARP, so take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But it'd be interested to see what the community feels about this idea, because even after the project failed and all the rest of it, I still think this is one of my most positive ones that came from it. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I love you all, and I'll see you soon. Bye.